Here goes.
Alright, so now we got the Sky combo, and I don't even know what to say anymore, bro. Like, this is another combo by V Gaming, and basically the last three combos that I've replicated have all been V Gaming's combos, and I don't know what to say, man. The guy's been on a roll, he's been killing it, he's been cooking, and as long as he keeps cooking, it looks like I'm gonna have my hands full, unfortunately. But all jokes aside, I really am hoping that this time this really will be my last combo. Because I'm tired of analyzing combos and I'm tired of replicating combos. But when I see a really cool combo, a really good combo, I just feel the need to just replicate it, you know? So this combo by V Gaming is actually an environmental combo, and he did this on Mission 2, you know, that street, you know, the stage, you know exactly what I mean, and he used this one platform to make the combo possible, and I was like, you know, I can't do this. I tried and I couldn't do it, so I was like, wait, what if there's a way to turn this combo into something that isn't environmental? Basically, to do this combo in neutral, without any specific requirements. And I was brainstorming, I spent a lot of time thinking, and I came up with the idea to simply use one hit of Yamato Combo A on the ground as filler, and then immediately use Void Slash, and I basically made my own version of the combo. So this isn't exactly a one-to-one replica. There are a lot of moves that the V Gaming uses that I don't use simply because, you know, there's no need for me to use them. In V Gaming's case, in his combo, he had to use Kick 13 and Air Stinger and all those things so that he would get the enemy closer to the platform. You know, that there's a lot of thought that went into that. But here, it's just, you know, a combo that's being done in neutral. Like, you can do this in the void or anywhere on any stage. So, yeah. So, without further ado, let's start actually analyzing the combo. So you gotta be in your base form, and you gotta start charging your Sin DT. Make sure it's fully charged, and you keep holding your Sin DT button, alright, before you start the combo. Like, you keep holding it, and now, you use Rising Star, and you know how Rising Star basically has two slashes? We've been over this a billion times. So the first slash launches the enemy slightly into the air, and the second slash launches the enemy even higher into the air. So you gotta use Air Trick after the first slash of Rising Star. So use Rising Star, and immediately after you've launched the enemy into the air with the first slash, you use Air Trick to teleport to the enemy, and you switch to Beowulf and you use Lunar Phase. After this, you use Trig Down to descend to the ground, and at this point, you release your Sin DT button, and you go into your Sin Double Trigger. Now, basically, Vergil's Sin Double Trigger explosion, like him going into a Sin DT, will launch the enemy into the air. That's simply how it works, and this is one of the main reasons why I decided to replicate this combo, because I haven't used this in a single combo, and it's really cool. So, you use Trig Down, you go into your Sin DT, the enemy gets launched into the air, now you switch to the Yamato, and you use upper slash 2 to launch the enemy even higher up into the air. At this point, you use Air Trick once again to teleport towards the enemy, you switch to the Mirage Edge, and you use Helmbreaker. And Helmbreaker, as you guys already know, is just pressing the attack button once in midair. However, the millisecond, like the moment you use Helmbreaker, you cancel it by enemy stepping, so you jump cancel, and then you use Air Stinger. So basically, what you gotta do is, you press the attack button to use Homebreaker, and you immediately jump. So you immediately use enemy step, and after this, you press right plus attack button to use Air Stinger. So that's how Air Stinger works, right plus attack button when you're on the left side. So you can see it here, attack button, jump, right plus attack button. At this point, you use Air Trick once again to teleport to where the enemy is, or you could use Trick Down, because it's going to have the same effect. You will be on the ground, because that's where the enemy is. And now you switch to the Yamato, and you use Rising Star once again. And that is the final, that is the end of the first part of this combo. Very, very simple stuff. There really isn't a lot of room for mistake in this first part of the combo. It's very, very simple. But now we're moving on to the second part of this combo, which isn't difficult per se, but it's one of those instances where, it's not hard to do, but it's kind of cumbersome to explain. It's a little troublesome, So before I actually start talking about the second part of the combo, the Doppelganger setup, I feel the need to just, talk about all of the individual moves that comprise that constitute this part of the setup. So first up, we got the Storm Blades. Now, as you guys already know, when you're on the right side and you want to use the Storm Blades, you press right and you hold the Mirage Blade button. In my case, I press D and I hold my right mouse button. And then, when you release the Mirage Blade button, the Storm Blades will actually hit the enemy, and they will launch them into the air. That's the whole purpose of Storm Blades. They launch the enemy into the air. However, in this case, you're going to want to hold the Mirage Blade button until the end of the setup. So that's very important. Next, we got to talk about Vergil's air taunts. Now, as you guys already know, Vergil does not react to melee commands while he's using a taunt. However, his Doppelganger does. He's not affected by this because the Doppelganger can't really taunt. So, that's kind of important. Now, Vergil has two air taunts. The first air taunt is when your style ranking is below S. So, A, B, C, D, or no rank at all. And if your style rank is below S, Vergil will throw these 3 Mirage Blades, and they will launch the enemy into the air upon impact, usually, depending on the distance, the height, a lot of things. However, if your style ranking is S, or double S, or triple S, and you want to use Vergil's air taunt, if you have Beowulf equipped, he will use the same exact air taunt with these 3 small Mirage Blades that will launch the enemy into the air. However, if your style ranking is S or double S or triple S, and you have the Yamato equipped or the Mirage Edge equipped, then when you attempt to use the air taunt, Vergil will use this air taunt, which is this small slash, the DMC3 aerial rave thing. I don't really know how to call it. I use this in the blood combo. I don't think I've used this in any other combo. So this is important, or so I thought, but it turns out that it really isn't, because you can actually do this combo perfectly, with no problem at all, even with the normal air taunt. So you don't need to have an S rank to start this combo, but it is, desirable. It is favorable, I guess. It's cool. But I tried using this combo. I tried doing this combo with, the normal air taunt, and the enemy would not get launched into the air. These 3 Mirage Blades, they wouldn't launch the enemy into the air, so you got nothing to worry about. However, if you want to be on the safe side, you might want to start this combo with an S rank, right? So that's just me giving you some friendly advice, but again, like I said, it's really not necessary. Now, as you guys already know, trick up is letting go of the lock-on and pressing the trick button. In my case, I let go of shift and I press E. And Vergil will propel himself into the air, basically. So that's trick up. That's very important. And, of course, we've got Aerial Rave Tool. As you guys already know, Aerial Rave Tool, or Aerial Rave B, is attack button, pause, and then you keep mashing the attack button like a maniac. So you press the attack button twice, then you make a pause, and then you continue to mash. However, you could also press the attack button 3 times instead of twice, and it will probably still work depending on the speed. However, if you don't make that pause, if you press the attack button more than 3 times without making any pause, you'll end up using Aerial Rave 1 instead of Aerial Rave 2. So that's very important. So with all that being said, we can finally start discussing this second part of the combo. So after using Rising Star, you immediately press right and you hold the Mirage Blade button to use the Storm Blades, right? And you simultaneously, like at this point, you simultaneously summon the haste version of the Doppelganger, the one who is in sync with you and mimics all of your commands immediately. So, Rising Star, and you simultaneously summon this Doppelganger and you use the Storm Blades. And make sure that you keep holding the Mirage Blade button. You don't let go of it until you're done with the setup, alright? That's very important. It may seem a little intimidating, but believe me, it's not a problem. You'll get used to it. Just practice this part, and you'll get the consistency. So, after you summon the haste version of the Doppelganger, at this point, alright, just keep this in mind. You switch to the Mirage Edge, alright? While you're summoning the Doppelganger, basically. You switch to the Mirage Edge, and you keep mashing the taunt button. I would advise doing it even before the Doppelganger has been fully formed, because, just for good measure, just to be on the safe side. So, you keep pressing the taunt button, and eventually Vergil will use the air taunt. In my case, I'm using the S-rank air taunt with the Yamato, and at this point, you let go of the lock-on, this is very important, and you press the attack button 2 to 3 times. I would advise pressing it 3 times. Now, what will be the result of this? Basically, you use the taunt, and while you're using the air taunt, you press the attack button 3 times. This will cause the Doppelganger to use the first 2 hits of Aerial Rave 2. And Vergil won't do anything because he's too busy taunting, and he doesn't react to any of your melee commands while he's performing a taunt. Alright, this is very important. However, the Doppelganger uses the first 2 hits of Aerial Rave 2, and you might be a little confused, like, you pressed the attack button 3 times, you didn't press it twice, but he still only did 2 hits? Don't worry about it, it's not a problem. Press the attack button twice or thrice. Usually it's thrice, like usually you want to press the attack button 3 times, but don't press it more than that, alright? So, to recap, just in case, because I've been yapping a lot. So you use Rising Star. Immediately after using Rising Star, you simultaneously summon the haste version of the Doppelganger, and you input the Storm Blades, and you keep holding the Mirage Blade button. You don't let go of it. And now you switch the Mirage Edge, and you keep mashing the taunt button to use the air taunt. At this point, while you're using the air taunt, you press the attack button 3 times so that the Doppelganger can use the first 2 hits of Aerial Rave 2 with the Yamato. You let go of the lock-on, and you use Trick Up. So you press the Trick button, alright? And now you make a pause, right? Like while using Trick Up, you've basically made this little pause. And now you want to use Air Stinger with the Mirage Edge, which is the left plus attack button. So, you use Air Stinger, but you press the attack button more than once. In fact, you want to mash the attack button, alright? After using Air Stinger, you immediately use Trick Down to teleport to the ground. You immediately switch to the Yamato, and you use 1 hit of Yamato Combo A on the ground after immediately following it up with Void Slash, which is left plus right plus attack button. This will cause the Doppelganger to use the final hit of Yamato Aerial Rave 2, and Vergil will catch the enemy with Void Slash. Just in midair, like this. And now, you deactivate the Doppelganger, and you let go of the Storm Blades. You let go of your Mirage Blade button, and the enemy will be launched into the air. Okay, so again, I may have maybe I was a little too fast. I get a lot of complaints from people saying that I repeat myself a lot. Believe me, I am fully I'm acutely aware of this, but it's precisely because there's so many people that get confused, that think that I'm too fast. So some people, like, they don't like this and they criticize me for it, but some people really like the fact that I repeat myself and that I treat my audience like they're like 3 years old. But yeah, so basically, Air Stinger is left plus attack button when you're on the right side in midair. But you want to press the attack button more than once. You don't just press it once, you keep mashing it. In this particular instance that I basically chose for the analysis, I pressed the attack button twice while using Air Stinger, and then I press the attack button one more time on the ground to use one hit of Yamato combo A before using Void Slash, right? But there is another instance where I didn't do it like this, so here you can see how I use Air Stinger, I press left plus attack button, and I press the attack button 4 times, right? So make sure, don't hesitate to mash the attack button like a maniac while using Air Stinger. So you use Trick Up, and after this pause, you press left and you keep mashing the attack button. Then you use Trick Down, you switch to Yamato, you press the attack button one more time, and you immediately use Void Slash. Just so you know, when you're on the left side, on the ground with the Yamato, Void Slash is left plus right plus attack button. Or in my case, A plus D plus left mouse button. And that's basically how Void Slash works. Now, I really can't stress enough how fast you gotta be. Make sure that immediately after switching to the Yamato, you press the attack button and immediately use Void Slash. As soon as the first hit of Yamato combo A comes out on the ground, you immediately use Void Slash. Otherwise, you might be too late, and the enemy might fall to the ground before you can catch them with Void Slash. Also, I know I keep repeating myself, and I know I keep stating the obvious, but like I said, you use the air taunt, and you press the attack button 2 to 3 times so that the Doppelganger can use the first 2 hits of aerial rave tool. Then you make a pause, and the reason you gotta mash the attack button while using Air Stinger, so you press the left and you mash the attack button, is obviously so that the Doppelganger can do the remainder of aerial rave tool. So the roulette spin and the last hit of aerial rave tool, you gotta mash the attack button during Air Stinger to make that happen. So again, attack button, attack button, attack button, and the Doppelganger will do the first 2 hits. Pause, and Trick Up, and now Air Stinger, and you press the left and you mash the attack button. And the Doppelganger will now use the rest of Aerial Rave Tool. And when you use Void Slash and that one hit of Yamato combo A on the ground, that will cause the Doppelganger to use the final hit of Aerial Rave Tool. So just felt the need to clarify that for the umpteenth time. Anyway, now that you've caught the enemy with Void Slash, and now that you've released the Storm Blades and launched the enemy into the air, you switch to the Mirage Edge and you use Deep Stinger, and you also input the Blistering Blades to make sure the enemy doesn't fall to the ground, which is forward plus holding the Mirage Blade button and then releasing it, right? So this is just for good measure, basically. And now you use Deep Stinger. In my case, I let go of the lock-on, and you gotta know how to steer Deep Stinger. Sometimes the final hit of Deep Stinger won't connect, and you gotta know exactly when to let go of the attack, when to let go of the lock-on, when to lock on again. You can move left and right. It really, it can be problematic, but I really, don't worry about it for now. So while using Deep Stinger, you once again input the Storm Blades. Now, depending on your position, you might do it when facing the enemy straight, or you might be on the left side, on the right side, it really doesn't matter. Make sure you input the Storm Blades. If you're facing the enemy like this, they're in front of you, it's back plus Mirage Blade button. If you're on the left side, it's left plus Mirage Blade button. If you're on the right side, it's right plus Mirage Blade button. If you're behind the enemy, it's basically forward plus Mirage Blade button. So that's basically how it works. So you input the Storm Blades, and once again, you keep holding the Mirage Blade button while using Deep Stinger. And now, after you're done with Deep Stinger, after this final slash, you let go of the Mirage Blade button. You once again let go of the Storm Blades, and this will launch the enemy into the air. At this point, you switch to the Yamato, and you use Judgment Cut End, and you might want to use the Blistering Blades once again for good measure, because the enemy might fall to the ground if you don't. But this highly depends on the altitude. I would advise you to do it, because, you know, better safe than sorry, you know. And now you use Judgment Cut End, and you basically finish the combo, and that is the end of the Sky combo. Alright, so now let's talk about all of the mistakes you can make and all of the issues you can encounter while attempting this combo. So, believe it or not, with this combo, there really aren't that many mistakes you can make. This combo is definitely one of the easiest combos I've done in a while. It took me like 37 minutes, and 99% of the mistakes I made were actual mistakes. Like, not issues, but actual mistakes, like, on my part. You know, I made mistakes, like, it was mostly muscle memory. We'll talk about it. So, the first mistake you can make is using Sin DT in midair. Now, I only did this once. Like, this literally only happened once. I don't even know how or why. Well, I know how and why, because, you know, you're supposed to use Trig Down. And once you've used Trig Down, you will be on the ground, and at this point, you let go of the Sin DT button, and you go into your Sin DT. However, here, I kind of went into my Sin DT, I released my Sin DT button before I fully hit the ground. Like, I was in midair while using Trig Down, and I didn't fully hit the ground before I released my Sin DT button. And as a result, I ended up using Sin DT in midair. Now, this would happen quite a few times. Like, I would use Air Trick and Rising Star a bit too late. Like, this isn't an issue per se. It's more of a style thing, a speed thing. It looks a bit jarring to me. Like, I just didn't like it. You know, it took me some time to, like, go, oh, right, now I'm supposed to use Air Trick. Oh, right, now I'm supposed to use Rising Star. So, I don't know. I consider this a stylistic problem more than an actual issue with the combo, because you can continue the combo like this without any problems. Now, like I said, this is what happens when you try to do the combo without using the air taunt. Vergil simply uses Helmbreaker with the Mirage Edge because, well, he reacts to what you're pressing, but if you use the air taunt, he will be too busy taunting to actually react to your melee inputs. So, yeah, this is just, you know, a demonstration of what could happen. This only happened once, and I was completely out of it when it did. So, yeah. Now, here you can see how I didn't switch the Mirage Edge, and as a result, I ended up using Aerial Rave with the Yamato. This happened a few times. With this combo, my main issue was switching weapons. I don't know why. I mean, I have a pretty good idea. This combo, especially the second part of it, is eerily similar to the Wreckage combo. So much so that I initially thought they were identical, but they're not, because in the Wreckage combo and the Urban combo, you know, like, Vergil summons the haste version of the Doppelganger, and then he uses Trick Up, and then he uses Air Stinger, and during Air Stinger, he uses the first two hits of Aerial Rave. Then he uses the Air Taunt, and while using the Air Taunt, he inputs the rest of Aerial Rave 2 with the Doppelganger, right? But here, this isn't the case. Like, here, first you do the Air Taunt, and while using the Air Taunt, you input the first two hits of Aerial Rave with the Doppelganger, and then you use Trick Up and Air Stinger, and during Air Stinger, that's when you input the rest of Aerial Rave 2 with the Doppelganger. So this is not the same at all, right? It's not the same as the Wreckage combo. It's not the same setup, even though it may look like it. But yeah, basically this is what happened here. Now here you can see how the Doppelganger ended up using Aerial Rave 1 instead of 2. Now, I told you how you're supposed to press the attack button 2 to 3 times, right? If you press it more than that, the Doppelganger will end up using Aerial Rave 1 instead of 2. Like, if you're mashing like a maniac, that's what's going to happen. However, in these examples, in all 2 or 3 of these examples, you'll notice that I actually pressed the attack button 3 times, and the Doppelganger ended up using the first 2 hits of Aerial Rave 2, and that was fine. The problem here was that when I used Trick Up and I, used Air Stinger, the pause I made wasn't long enough. So I should have made a longer pause between those first two hits and before Air Stinger. Now, I like this is something that you kind of gotta have a feeling for. It's a timing thing. It's really not that difficult, but you'll notice here how I make a pause after the third hit, after the second. I press the attack button 3 times. I use Trick Up, but the pause I made wasn't long enough. So when I used Air Stinger, the Doppelganger simply used the third hit of Aerial Rave 1 instead of Aerial Rave 2, the roulette spin. So definitely keep an eye out for this. Make sure that you don't make this mistake. Make sure that before using Air Stinger, the pause was long enough. Because if it isn't, the Doppelganger will use Aerial Rave 1. It's not all about mashing the attack button like a maniac, it's also about the duration of the pause, so make sure the pause is long enough. And now we got one of the most frequent issues that I've encountered, or maybe no, this is the most frequent issue, and possibly the only issue that I've experienced with this combo that isn't like a skill issue or a muscle memory issue, but an issue with the game or the camera. So, after using Trig Down, I'm supposed to use one hit of Yamato Combo A, and then immediately use Void Slash, which is left plus right plus attack button. But in all of these examples, Vergil ends up continuing Yamato Combo A. So he doesn't react to Void Slash, he doesn't react to me pressing left plus right plus attack button, he just keeps using Yamato Combo A. This one time, I accidentally switched to Beowulf, and he ended up using Beowulf Combo A, right? So this, I think, has to do with the camera of the game. An age-old issue, basically. You press something, you press one thing, and it reacts to something completely different. Like left plus right plus attack button. Nah, bro, you never said that. You never, made those inputs. Instead, you were just pressing the attack button. As you can see, in every single one of these instances, right? You can see how, I use, Trig Down, everything is great, and now, I press the attack button, and left, right, attack button, nope, didn't work, he continues with Yamato Combo A. And it's the same with all of these examples, like, you press the attack button, and then left, right, attack button, nope. Now, maybe I press the attack button more than once, and this is why it happens, right? Like, maybe that's the issue here, but I really couldn't tell you. This is the only thing that comes to mind. Maybe it's because I pressed the attack button twice while on the ground, right? Maybe it's not a camera issue. Like, if you look at it, I pressed the attack button twice, and Vergil did the maybe it really is on my end, like on my part. Maybe it is a mistake that I made, because every time I would press the attack button twice, and then I would use Void Slash. So make sure to press the attack button once, and then, you press left plus right plus attack button. Because maybe this really isn't a camera issue. Maybe it's just because I pressed the attack button more than once. So again, make sure to press the attack button once, like Trig Down, you press the attack button only once, and then you immediately press left plus right plus attack button. So practice that. Attack button, left, right, attack button. Attack button, left, right, attack button. Immediately, make sure you don't press the attack button more than once. I believe I have a lingering suspicion that all of this happened because I pressed the attack button more than once. I pressed it twice or thrice, and Vergil would end up using multiple hits of Yamato Combo A before using Void Slash. So this is very important. Again, you press the attack button once to use one hit of Yamato Combo A, and you immediately press left, right attack button to use Void Slash. Jesus, I'm insane with these repetitions, bro. Here you can see how I ended up using Kick 13 with Beowulf instead of Void Slash, and this is by far the most frequent issue I've experienced. It's even more frequent than what I just described, because what I described was probably an issue, but this was on my part. Like, this is my, like, a me issue. See, I would constantly keep switching to Beowulf instead of the Yamato. I would constantly press the wrong button. I would constantly switch to Beowulf instead of Yamato. And it was the most agonizing thing ever. I just couldn't get my muscle memory in check. I couldn't do it, bro. I kept switching to Beowulf. And as you guys already know, when you're on the left side on the ground with Beowulf, left plus right plus the tag button is kick 13. But when you're on the left side on the ground with Yamato, it's Void Slash. So this is why I ended up using kick 13. This happened a billion, quadrillion times. It is absolutely comical, bro. I have no... I don't know what to say, really. So, yeah. Now here you can see how, like, this isn't really a mistake, this is just me demonstrating what would happen if you used Void Slash immediately after Trig Down. So if you use Void Slash, before you use that one hit of Yamato combo A on the ground, Vergil will use Void Slash before the Doppelganger would be done with the last hit of Aerial Rave Tool, and he wouldn't be able to catch the enemy. So you would use Void Slash way too early. This is why it's so important to use that one hit of Yamato combo A as filler, right? It's very important. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. You end up using Void Slash too early. However, there is a way to use Void Slash without using the first hit of Yamato combo A on the ground, but you gotta wait. So here you can see how this worked a few times. Like, I would end up using Void Slash immediately after Trig Down, but I was kind of slow. This is the only reason why it worked. I was slow. So it depends on your speed. Everything depends on your speed, basically. So yeah. And here you can see how the combo worked. Everything was fine, but I feel like Void Slash was a little late. Even though the enemy is, like, their feet aren't touching the ground, they're on the Void Slash, they're in midair, I feel like I was a bit too slow with the Void Slash. I feel like the enemy was already on the ground before I used Void Slash, and I simply didn't like that. This would happen a lot, not gonna lie. But again, this is just a stylistic thing. I just don't like it, but it doesn't mean that the combo failed. Like, the combo can absolutely work just like this. Also, remember how I told you how sometimes Deep Stinger simply won't connect? Like, the last hit won't connect? Yeah, well, this is exactly what I meant. This is what happened with the Moist combo, this is what happened with the Market combo, even with the Wreckage combo V-Tool. Like, every combo where you use Deep Stinger, you run the risk of the last hit disconnecting, or, well, not connecting at all. And the only way to circumvent this, to my knowledge, is to know exactly how to steer Deep Stinger. So you let go of the lock-on and you keep going left, right. You gotta know exactly at which point to let go of the lock-on and at which point to lock on again. And it's a lot of stuff. It's, you know, sometimes it's timing, sometimes luck is involved. You just gotta hope for the best, honestly. I really can't give you any palpable advice, if you know what I mean. And that's about it for this combo, really, and all the mistakes you can make, all the issues you can encounter. There really isn't that much to talk about here. It's a very, very simple combo, really. So, yeah. Kudos to V Gaming. He's been on fire lately. And for my own well-being, I hope that... I mean, I'm just kidding, you know, I hope he continues making insane combos. In fact, Maker T came back a few days ago. As of me uploading this video, it's been like, what, 3 days? So, yeah, the last thing I need right now is Maker T coming up with more insane setups, and it'll be 2022 all over again. So, yeah, for now, this is my last combo analysis. So, yeah. See ya, peace out, and have a good one.